My first attempt at recording this was a 2-hour-long rant. So, let us try again. Relics. What are relics? You may have heard about them because they were advertised expansion feature for Secrets of the Obscure. You might also have noticed that I forgot to mention them in my expansion review video. Why is that? Well, that's because relics are one giant disappointment. And why are they a disappointment? Well, let's start with complete lack of transparency. Transparency is very important in build crafting. Relics don't give us basic informations about their features. Even the simplest, those who give us boons, don't tell us how long boons last. And if we get to the more complicated relics, like Relic of Dagda, we lack even more critical information. Now, imagine for a second you moused over your weapon skill and instead of a proper tooltip you saw a quote, "hit things to damage things," or something like this. It wouldn't be very constructive, wouldn't? To use Relic of Dagda as blatant example, we know it fires a projectile at a target, but we don't know what is the damage this projectile deals, what is the range of the projectile, what is the range of the targeting, what is the delay before firing, what are conditions applied by this projectile, how many conditions are applied by this projectile, what is the duration of conditions applied, what is the maximum scaling of the damage, does this projectile by any chance is unblockable, undodgeable, or anything like this, does it ignore blindness,
does he look like a bitch?
The questions pile up and up and up without answers. Nothing of this is included in the tooltip. With a little bit of cosplaying Sherlock Holmes and investigating, we can conclude that indeed this projectile pierces and that its damage is garbage. But besides that, we still lack critical information. Further, speaking of relics, we can divide them into several groups. First off are relics that do something but have zero information about what they do, like Relic of Dagda and Ceres. Then we have relics that do basically the same thing as traits do, like for example Relic of Durability. Then we have relics very niche, usable by very few builds in the game, like Relic of Firebrand. Then we have relics that give you what runes used to give you, but now you have jumped through additional hoops to get the same effect. And then we have relics like Relic of Maban and Relic of Lear, which are literally worse than not running a relic. Let us explain everything in the details. Relic of Dagda, we spoke before. TLDR is, it doesn't do enough damage, it doesn't do enough conditions, and it doesn't do enough anything else to warrant it being used over any other relic. Relic of Ceres is a lighter example of this. Depending on how many boons it corrupts, it might be usable. Then we come to the relics that do basically the same thing as traits do. For example, Relic of Durability. It does the same thing as Thick Skin. Both give you 3 seconds of protection. Relic of Durability, however, gives you 3 seconds of regeneration as well. Without increases to healing power, regeneration heals around 130 damage per second. So does healing 400 health make this actually worth being a relic? Then we get to the Relic of Firebrand. What is the problem with Relic of Firebrand? Well, it activates on using Final Charge of Mantra. How many classes in the GW2 have access to mantras?
2 there are. No more, no less.
This is a relic that only truly works for one build of one class in one game mode. End of the discussion. Then we get to the relics that give you what runes did better. For example, Relic of Fireworks or Relic of Isgaren. They give you 10% damage buff for performing a specific action. Previously, you had runes like Rune of the Eagle, which gave you 10% more damage against everything that was below half health permanently, without need of performing a specific action. This basically makes relics less versatile than were runes before, which doesn't make bloody sense, because the point of separating rune effects from runes was to make them more versatile. And now we somehow achieved opposite. So finally, Relic of Maban and Lear. What's the problem with them? Well, Relic of Maban gives you specific buff every time you apply might to yourself. You need to get this buff 10 times. And cooldown on getting additional stacks of this buff is 3 seconds. So the lowest time you need to be in combat for this buff to stack up is 27 seconds. The problem here lies in the situation where most fights in Guild Wars 2 are decided within 20 seconds, or at least reach the point of no return within 20 seconds. So this relic usually pops after the fight is already decided. On top of which, you need to have a shade load of might for it to even matter. And once it stops its effect, it takes your might from you. So, at best, it cements the already won fight. At worst, it takes your might from you when another enemy engages on top of you. In both situations, not running a relic would be just as good as running this relic or better. And then we have Relic of Lear. Relic of Lear applies specific effect onto the allies you restored health of. Restored health. Not hit with healing spell, restored health. If somebody is full health and you cast a spell on them, they don't get effect of the relic. So you can't pre-cast this relic on full health target to protect them from damage. Next part. This relic expects you to take damage your allies would take otherwise. What is the problem with that? Well, if you are in a teamfight with 4 of your allies, in range of your healing...
Like that's ever gonna happen.
I know it's a miraculous example, but stay with me, okay? If you heal 4 of your allies with any spell, and the relic pops, and then they get hit with any AoE, you get 50% of damage each of them would take. And 100% of damage you would take. So you effectively take 3 times the damage you would normally take. What is the problem with that? Well, there are already multiple builds in the game that can one-shot people. So now imagine you get one-shot even harder. Relic of Lear puts you in a situation when you get absolutely shredded for no fault of your own. Further than this, because this relic doesn't show you its cooldown, you can activate it accidentally without your knowledge and get absolutely destroyed from nowhere. Its lack of transparency with its cooldown is more dangerous to the user than enemy team, and that applies not just to PvP and World v World. Now imagine you try to heal your raid squad and the boss does a mechanic. 2 or 3 people did not dodge the mechanic because they have the damage reduction buff on them. So now you get absolutely vanished from existence because your teammates got the buff and got false sense of security for which you bloody paid. So you need not just this relic, not just healing skills, but enough damage mitigation, hard damage mitigation, to warrant using it and not visiting the god. And I checked. You can't block the damage you take. Why is this system like this? We made relics. We advertised them as a grandeur thing that will revolutionize the game. And what we gave players is a bunch of garbage. There are 4 or 5 relics without grand design flaw that stops them from being good or even usable. Dear Arena Frogging Net, why do we waste resources on making something that is not more than a disappointment? And now that I made enemy of the bloody creators of the bloody game, crap face.